Well, I have been out hunting for a couple of weeks, and my gosh, it feels like I've been gone for a month. I almost forgot how to do a podcast, but I've got you guys to help me out, and I've gotten some great comments, questions, and a couple of chewing outs from y'all. So we're looking forward to reading this. And hey, I've got a really fun one here from somebody who found a list of hunter preferred cartridges for whitetail deer hunting. Got a complete list, number one, number two, right on down the line. And I think you'd be kind of shocked at some of these. I think you'll enjoy this, and it might inspire you to write in and tell us what your favorite whitetail cartridge is. Let's cover it all on this episode of Ron Spomer Outdoors Podcast. Hey everybody, before we dive in with our first patron, I want to talk about a little fun visit we had for some friends of ours from Tasmania. We met over this podcast in my regular channel, and they were in the country hunting and wanted to swing by and say hi, and they just seemed like such nice folks that we did that and had a great time with them. When they got back home, they sent us a special treat. Looks kind of ordinary, but they really are extraordinary. Guess what these gloves are made out of? Possum fur mixed with merino wool. That is so cool. And they are soft and warm and comfortable, and we really appreciate that. So this is what they are. They're called Thermadry Thermal Wear Polyprop Possum. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was merino wool. It's polypropylene and possum. Now, the possums over there are so overly abundant that they're a real problem. So they get run over on the roads, and they get in trouble in the crops and all sorts of stuff. So they are making good use of an abundant natural resource. So this one, oh, I'm right. There is some merino in here. It's 20% possum, 30% merino wool, 36% polypropylene, and 14% synthetic of some other kind. So I would imagine you could look for something like this on Amazon. You don't have to make personal friends with someone from Tasmania to get a pair. Thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate that. Now, with Christmas coming up, I would be remiss and not bring up some knives. I mean, what outdoorsman can't use more knives? And Knives of Alaska not only has traditional hunting knives, but they've got some crazy wild things like this bobcat, which I really like. Normally, I would look at this and go, what? It kind of looks like, I think it's called an ulu from up in far north. They use those for skinning, a big rounded curved knife like this. But it also has this gut hook on here, and we found out last year that it works really well for cleaning of all things tree squirrels. Makes it really easy to go around and get that hide off. So if you're looking for something different, bobcat would really fill the bill. And here's another one from Knives of Alaska, and kind of similar, big skinning blade with a gut hook. This one's called a caribou, and I can see why this would work really well for large animals like caribou, elk, moose, and bear for some skinning work. So even if the hunter in your life has plenty of knives, I think you could find something unusual and useful from Knives of Alaska, so you might want to check those guys out. Now, let's hear from our patron, Seth. Ron, my name is Seth, and I'm here in Mountain Home, Idaho. I moved here after finishing 6 years in the Army as a drone pilot. Now, that's the first time I've heard of someone in person, sort of, who flew a drone. So this kind of shows the changing times. I was listening to your podcast today with Jim, and you all broached the topic of laser rangefinders, and whether knowingly or not, you got into a subject that I'm pretty well versed in due to my previous occupation, laser detractors. You described something known as beam divergence, or more commonly called the flashlight effect, and this aspect of laser operation is vital for understanding other detractors. Jim also mentioned the bore sight error of all things. Another important thing to keep in mind is that lasers read from the point of greatest laser energy, which is usually in the center. There are several laser detractors. Now, when I read this word detractor, I'm assuming that he means there's something detracting from the performance of the laser. So let's keep reading. The terms I use are the ones that I'm familiar with, though other people may use different terminology. Attenuation is one problem. Laser power is decreased due to atmospheric particles, obstructions, and or the material you are lasing being a poor reflector. I think most of us know that one. If you're going through fog or a lot of dust, you're not going to get a good reading. And if you've got a really dull subject, it's not going to bounce back a lot of light. So that makes it a little tougher. And then if you're trying to talk with my wife's phone on, you're going to have some more detractions.
Sorry.
Now, what's the next one? Oh, he says that this attenuation problem with dust in the air and such results in an inability to read the returning energy of that light ray. So that makes sense. Now there's something called backscatter. That's similar to attenuation, but in this case, it's atmospheric particles sending the energy back into your sensors, causing a false reading. Oh, I had the two confused or lumped into one, but they're both pretty similar. Beam divergence. Now, this is one I was aware of. The aforementioned flashlight effect. Yeah. The farther away the target is, the more that the laser spot opens up, kind of like a shotgun pattern, guys. It opens up, resulting in a larger spot size and then reduced energy density and accuracy. Jim and I talked about that. Now, the bore sight error. Your laser is out of coincidence with your point of aim. And entrapment means that your laser fires into an area where the energy can't return to the sensor. That's rare for handheld LRFs, which is what we use for hunting. And then there's overspill. Your spotting is placed too high in the target or too low, and the overspill reflects back to you. We talked about that one. On a flat surface, the grass in front of you bounces it back before your actual subject. There's spot jitter, movement of the spot due to instability. I think most of us know that. The steadier you hold that laser when you're working with it, the better chance you're going to get a good reading. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff here from Seth. We want to thank you for that, Seth. It's one of the things I really appreciate about doing these podcasts is that so many of you are experts in one field or another upon which I touch with limited knowledge. And then the more polite people will write back and correct me nicely, and the others will call me a doofus. But I really appreciate you who send back good, useful information like this. Now, here's one final thing from Seth. He says, hey, I think people can put too much faith in their laser rangefinders. Using them extensively and understanding the detractors is important. I'd say it's another point in favor of using the maximum point blank range system. Yes. I love it, Seth. Thanks so much for that. Now, here is another patron, and this is Lewis. He's talking about the physics of the suppressors. Equal and opposite reaction doesn't only apply to solids. The powder in your cartridge is a large function of recoil in a gun because the powder also is moving forward and pushing back, which is recoil comes at you because it's pushing back. So when the gases get maximum velocity, they have pushed against your shoulder. Well, a suppressor acts as a thing for the gas with forward momentum to collide with. Then it reapplies that force in a forward direction within the gun, so that pulls away from your shoulder and reduces the recoil. You can never negate recoil past what the bullet pushes back on you from its acceleration, but you can lessen recoil by catching as much of the powder gases as possible so that they can act at the front of the gun, pulling it back forward for a lower net energy push backwards. That sounds right to me. That's the same way brakes work. That's why they have those angles, and it changes the gases pushing back at you to a little bit pushing forward, and that reduces recoil, and that's pretty much what the baffles do inside of a suppressor. So people had a question about that the last time I read something about suppressors, and they thought, how can a suppressor change the recoil? There you go. All right. And then Steve, on another patron, says, hey, great show as usual, Ron. Both you and Jim never fail to inform and entertain. So that's referencing a podcast I did with Jim Harmer, Backfire. And Steve goes on to say, 1/2 minute of angle rifle. Anyone with a basic understanding of math should realize that an average of several groups means that the rifle shoots outside of that average group size sometimes. Yeah. For a lot of shooters and hunters, when they say, hey, that was a flyer, what they're really meaning or saying is that if the shot was not to be expected, it's out of the ordinary. For those who can call their shots, the one you know will be up and left or a bit to the right before you look at the target, well, then I'd say that's a flyer. But when the crosshairs are dead on, the trigger squeeze is good, and the shot hits outside of the average, hey, buddy, that ain't no flyer. That's just statistics. It's physics. So keep this in mind. An average 1/2 MOA rifle could shoot 3 groups, all at exactly 1/2 inch, or it could shoot one true 1-hole group, and then a 1/2 inch group, and then a 1-inch group, and the average would be half MOA. So, yeah, good points there, Steve. I think too much of us put way too much emphasis on these tiny group sizes. It's wonderful to know that your rifle with your particular bullet and load will usually drop all of them inside a minute of angle, 1 inch at 100 yards, 2 inches at 200 yards, that sort of thing. But and a lot of guys will say you really can't measure that unless you've done a 10-shot group, or some will say even a 20-shot group, because at some point you're going to get one of these flyers, one of these out of the group norms, and that's kind of the one that's going to get you in trouble if it happens when you're shooting long range at a small target. So there you go, guys. Take all that minute of angle stuff and less with a grain of salt. Okay, let's see. What do we have here? Somebody talking again about this 8.6 blackout being used to hunt game at 150 yards, I believe. So Mr. M. Scott Rohde says, energy at 150 yards? That's what matters for ethical hunting. The animal is going to, or the bullet is going to bleed energy very quickly. So that would be the subsonic load we were shooting, and it was a 350 grain bullet at about 1,050 feet per second. So Scott seems to be saying that it doesn't have enough energy for ethical hunting. Now let's see what Hans says about it. I'm not a fan of using tactical subsonic loads for hunting. Animals don't care if it's quiet. They care if it's enough energy so that they don't suffer. See, guys are thinking it's energy that takes game. And now I replied to Scott here, and I said, I appreciate your concern for ethics, but energy is not a major component of killing. Beyond being enough to penetrate and to disrupt the vitals, strike the central nervous system, or cause hemorrhaging, energy hardly matters. It does very little. This is why a puny 40-grain 22 long rifle bullet to the brain or the spine kills instantly. Put to the heart, it kills about as fast as a 180-grain solid from a 30-06 carrying 3,000 foot-pounds of energy, or a 350-grain bullet that expands to 4 times its original diameter, which this 350-grain 8.6 bullet does, and also creates wide, sharp-edged petals that stick out, and it spins really fast because it's a 1 in 3 twist barrel. Well, do you see what's going on here? That's why in this video that we did, you saw a cow elk be shot with that bullet, and it collapsed instantly when that 350 grain bullet struck. So what's the problem with not enough energy, guys? So what's really happening here, I think, is it's, as I said, you don't need that much energy. It just needs to get inside to do the damage. And when you've got a big, heavy bullet, even though it's moving slowly, just like all the bullets did back in the black powder days, you take the animal with the momentum of that bullet. All that mass is hard to slow down. So even though it's not going that fast, when it gets there and hits, all that mass keeps it going. That's why heavy bullets work so well on big animals. So don't get too worried about high velocity being required. Unless you can put that velocity to work, it really doesn't matter that much. But thanks for writing in on that, guys. It helps us all to scratch our heads and dig into this a little bit more and understand how all of this works, because I've got to admit, you're right. These subsonics are contrary to what we've been doing for the last, probably 200 years in developing faster and faster bullets and cartridges that really drive them quickly. But it does work when properly applied. Now, let's see. What's this about? Oh, this was a picture I posted fairly recently after my recent hunt. I shot a pretty nice whitetail buck in South Dakota, and it had forked G2s. So on this bronze I have right here, you've got the first point is called the G1, and the next one's the G2, G3, G4, like that. So the second one on this buck that I shot had a fork on the left side. It had a similar fork matching on the right side. So it was pretty interesting when you find a buck like that. You go, wow, first of all, forked tines on a whitetail are non-typical. And then when they match, it's kind of special. So I took that buck and I posted a photo of it. And this guy is saying that it looks like it might be crossed with a mule deer. And the reason I put it in here and read it to you guys is that I want to explain that don't get so worked up about what the antlers look like, either on whitetail or mule deer, because quite often they have similar conformation. I see a lot of mule deer that are 3-pointers because they forked in the front, but that back fork really is just a tine that never forked again. And then it looks like it's maybe a whitetail. but it's not. The way that you can really tell, other than genetic testing, is by the metatarsal gland on the back legs. And that's the one that's down low, not the high one that they urinate on to get all stinky and stuff when they're rutting, but one that's lower down on the legs that I'm not even really sure what it does, leaves some kind of a scent that they know about and we don't. But the length of that is different in a mule deer and a whitetail. I can't remember which way it goes, but you need to understand the length of the metatarsal gland. And if it falls within a certain length, it's probably a hybrid. So hybrids are not all that common. They're not all that uncommon either, but so many people see the antlers and say, oh, that must be a cross. Not necessarily. Okay, let's see. Oh, the Smith and Wesson lever action rifle. We did that M1854 rifle from Smith and Wesson. Got a lot of good views and comments on that one. Squirrel Dog had something to say about it. He says, hey, Ron, you should do an episode about breaking in or wearing in a rifle barrel. I had a Remington 700 that shot 2.5 to 3-inch groups right out of the box. Whew! After about 200 rounds and several good cleanings, it settled in and the groups tightened up. I suspect that is part of what's going on with your Smith & Wesson. Well, I appreciate that, and it's a good point, Squirrel Dog. And hey, more power to you for hanging in there with a rifle that was giving you 2.5 to 3-inch groups. Most people would say it's a lemon and trade it off or something, but 200 rounds, that is a lot to get it to start shooting. But it does bring up a good point, and that is that most barrels will, or at least the majority of them, will start to shoot better after a bit of a break-in period. The issue with a lot of folks, or the question is it necessary to break in a barrel, and how do you do it? We've covered it several times on our videos, and I really don't get a one answer solves all issues, because some barrel makers will have an elaborate process that they say you need to do with their barrels, and the next one will say just start shooting it, clean it reasonably, and don't worry about it. And it's all over the map. Everything in between is like shoot once clean, shoot once clean, shoot once clean, and then it's shoot once clean, shoot twice clean, shoot 3 times clean, and on it goes with these different protocols. But I think the important thing to do is, yes, initially, before you shoot it ever, clean it, because you never know when it comes from the factory. Does it have some metal filings in it? Usually not, but you know, what the hey, clean it. Almost every rifle I have ever gotten brand new was already fouled in the barrel because the manufacturer proof tests them. They shoot them in the lab just to make sure everything is functioning properly. How many times they do that, I don't know, but it's always giving you a fouled bore. So I like to really clean that bore the first time, then start shooting it. And I will usually clean, sometimes I'll do it after 5 shots. And over the years, I've done the 1-shot clean, 2 shots clean routine, and all the rest of them. The problem is, I can never tell with that particular barrel if it made a difference or not, because there's nothing to judge it against. Would it have been different if I had used a different break-in technique? I don't know. And a lot of guys will tell me, hey, I get a new barrel and I start shooting it. When I put 20 rounds through it, I clean it, and then I shoot 20 more, and usually by then it starts shooting its best. And other guys will even go up to 50 or 60 and do it. It's just all over the map, guys. So I say pay your money and take your chances. But they all seem to work most of the time. And with a hunting rifle, I don't think I'd get too excited about it, because most are going to shoot well enough for good hunting accuracy out to responsible hunting distances. But if you're planning to work with a long-range target rifle of some kind and you want the ultimate in accuracy, probably doesn't hurt to do a pretty conservative break-in period using some of these clean techniques, shoot and clean, that kind of thing. But ask the rifle maker and or the barrel maker what they recommend. That's usually the best bet. All right, thanks for that one. Oh, by the way, that Smith & Wesson lever action shot some reasonably typical groups for lever actions, but it was brand new, and I did not have a long break-in period with it or anything. I don't know that I've shot 20 rounds through it anyway, so it could get a lot better in the future. Who knows? But it was a good, solid rifle, and I was really impressed with that. Now, by the way, if you didn't see it, Smith & Wesson, a lot of people say, wait a minute, they make handguns, revolvers. Well, what are you doing with a lever-action rifle? They were actually making lever action rifles way back in 1854. I think they started roughly 52. 1852, they got a basic lever action rifle idea from a Hunt Jennings. There was a gentleman named Hunt who around 1848 was playing around with a mechanism that would allow him to load what he called a volcanic bullet. He had a bullet hollow inside, put powder in there, and then I don't know if he'd used a pinhole through the cork that he put in the bottom to use for ignition, shoot the fire into it, or I know later he put a primer or a cap from like a muzzle loader in that base of that bullet, and that ignited it and drove it. But he had a tubular magazine under the barrel, and his little mechanism under the trigger bow was lever, and he could run that lever, and that would bring another bullet up, load it into the chamber so he could shoot again. And I think he had something like 20 of those underneath that long barrel. And it was working, a basic lever action. And then a man named Jennings got involved with him, and he tweaked a few things and improved it some more. Then Smith & Wesson, of the famous Smith & Wesson revolvers, they wanted to get into manufacturing guns, I believe, and they bought in with these guys, and they started tweaking it, and they came up with a pretty effective pistol, of all things, lever action pistol, and then built the same basic design with a long rifle barrel on it. Made those for about 2 years, and then they sold out, and Benjamin Tyler Henry got involved, and then he kept working on it and finally came up with the famous Henry rifle. Then Winchester bought that, and off it went, and lever actions became the hunter's rifle in the last half of the 19th century and at least the first half of the 20th. And they're still going strong here in the 21st century. So Smith & Wesson decided to jump back into lever actions. So if you want to check out something new, look into that 1854 Smith & Wesson. Now, somebody else was talking about that particular rifle that I reviewed. It was a synthetic black stock with a shiny silver stainless steel barreled action. So it's a little bit modern. They make the traditional styles as well, guys, but this one was one of the modern ones. And this gentleman writes in and says, hey, it's not traditional at all to put a scope on a lever action, but it is something that I have learned to accept. If I want to deer hunt and be able to shoot in low light, I have to have a scope. My Marlin 336 and Winchester 94 would both be much handier and nicer to look at with no scope, but they both wear optics. Fortunately, I was able to round up an older Loophole 2-7x32 for the Winchester 94, so it doesn't look quite as out of place as a larger scope would. That is a good point. Who was that? I got to reach down here and see who that was. John Smith. John, you are absolutely right. I think one of the issues with scoping lever actions, aside from it kind of unbalances them, and it just doesn't look right. Who looks like John Wayne carrying a scope on his lever action? But if you get a smaller scope, it's not quite so obtrusive. And you really don't need high power scope on something like a 30-30 anyway. You can do pretty well with a 30-30 out to 250 yards if you know your drops, your trajectory curve. You're keeping enough energy in that old flat-nosed, round-nosed bullet to do the job on a whitetail. But traditionally, they're 150-yard guns and in, but boy, a scope really helps you more precisely place your shot. All right, let's see. Oh, here's a funny little, two guys are going at it. The importance of language, I call this, or definition of terms. This was on a little short we did with Phil Shoemaker, and he talked about the 30-06 being really effective on big brown bears in Alaska. So many guys go up there thinking they need a 375 H&H, a 416 Magnum of some kind, but Phil said over the years he's seen the 30-06 just as effective. And some people, of course, had to pick a bone on that one. But this gentleman named Colin James says the '06 is just an absolute beast of a rifle. Pound for pound, it's the best gun ever built. And Soldat writes back to this one and answers and says, hey, 30-06 refers to a caliber, not a rifle. Lots of different guns shoot '06. And then Chris Parker sends in 5 little laughing emojis at this guy. Poor Colin. But what I want to say about this, guys, is that this is an example of why it's important to use the correct terminology for these things, all these rifle parts. You know, like a bullet is not a cartridge. So many people say, oh, what kind of a bullet do you shoot? And they want to know what cartridge you're shooting. And others will say, what's your caliber you're shooting? And if you say, I'm shooting a 264 caliber, they'll say, well, which 264? What do you mean? The 264 Win Mag? Could be a 6.5 Creedmoor. It's the diameter of the bullet. It's the diameter of the bore. You've got to use the name of the cartridge, which is on the head stamp at the base of the cartridge. Got to use the right terminology, guys, or we get all mixed up. Oh, hey, along that line, there was a guy named Ed here who took me to task for using the wrong terminology for an aperture sight. I think I called it an open sight or an iron sight. Let's see what he says. Where did he say that? Oh, here it is. Ed Becca said, hey, Ron, aperture sights are not open. So I called it an open sight. It was a peep sight. He and I said it was an open sight, and he says, no, an aperture sight or a peep sight is not an open sight. And I wrote back and said, it isn't? Every one I've ever looked through had a hole through the middle. It was open at the front, and it was open at the back. Must they also be open on top in order to be called an open? So there's a good definition of terms. What is an open sight, aperture sight, iron sight, peep sight? Whew, it's kind of confusing, guys. All right, now, Jim Harmer interview. We've got some more guys weighing in on this one. 33 Journeyman says, I am absolutely almost speechless. Is that kind of a contradiction? Absolutely almost? So nice to see and realize their pragmatic side of hunting. Finally, what's even more amazing is after 7 minutes of this podcast video, neither one, you or Jim, ever mentioned ballistic coefficient even once. Yay! Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that, Journeyman. We'll try harder next time to mention ballistic coefficient. And then Kimber 357 Magnum, we did a little handgunny. Really quick little short video where I pulled out a short revolver. It was a Kimber in 357 Magnum. And I said, this would be a great defense tool for bears and whatnot out in the woods. If you're out in bear country picking berries or fishing or whatever, who wants to lug around a 3-pound big revolver, 500 or 460 or something like that? But this lightweight, short, 3-inch barrel little thing would be pretty darn handy for that. So that's what I did the video on. And Joe Anita wrote and said, so you should go from a gun you hate carrying to a gun you hate shooting, right? Lots of laughs. And he's making a good point here, and that's one of the dilemmas we have. If you've got a great big gun that's really going to be effective on bears because it's shooting such big, heavy bullets, but it weighs so much, you hate carrying it, so as Phil Shoemaker said, you tend to leave it behind. You leave it in the tent, you leave it in camp, you just get tired of lugging that big, heavy thing around with you. So you go to a lighter, smaller handgun, and then it's like, okay, now I'm compromising here. I've gone to a lot lighter bullet. Will it be effective? And if I've got too light of a handgun, is it going to hurt to shoot it so I don't want to shoot it? Problems. The way I look at it, guys, is if I buy one of these really small, compact, lightweight Magnums in 357 or a 10 millimeter is another good option in an auto loader, for bear protection, it's because I hope I never have to use it. I am willing to put up with some really brutal recoil. What happens with a light handgun is that it simply stings like baseball bat. When you hit on the end of the bat, remember that? It hurts like crazy when that vibration comes down. That's what you get with a really lightweight revolver and a big cartridge. So it's a compromise. But I figure when I finally time to shoot this thing, I am going to be so hyped up with adrenaline from that bear attacking me, I probably won't worry too much about the sting in my hand. It's a lot less than the sting on my head when he bites me. So that's how I weigh that one. I'm going with a lightweight, and I'm going to be doing a video on one that I picked up here recently that is really lightweight. And we'll see if I can even stand to shoot it. I haven't even fired it yet. I guess I'm afraid of it. So stay tuned to that one. But yeah, lightweight little handguns can be a bit of an issue, but boy, they sure are nice to carry around with you. All right, what do we have here? Unhappy John on the 30-06. Oh, goodness, Johnny's really unhappy. John says, Ron, you are full of you-know-what on this 30-06. I have shot numerous deer at 400 yards. Stick your pheasant feather where the sun doesn't shine in a little bit more grotesque terminology. He said that. Ooh, John is really unhappy with me. So I wrote back and I said, gee, John, tell me what you really think. Kind of silly to get so bent out of shape over someone else's choice of or opinion on a rifle cartridge, isn't it? I have used 30-06 rifles to hunt and take moose, caribou, black bears, mule deer, whitetails, coyotes, oryx, hartebeest, pigs, warthogs, and a lot more game. By the way, when I was a kid, I knew a hunter who swore by not only the 30-06 but a 200 grain bullet in the 30-06, and he claimed that that was the only thing that worked on deer. Oddly, however, none of the rest of us used that combination, yet we all got our deer anyway. So, John, we hunters have plenty of anti-hunters who are trying to tear us down. Instead of helping them, perhaps we should support one another. So here's wishing you continued success with your 30-06. To which John replied with a 4-letter profanity. And then I wrote back and said, I am sorry you're such an unhappy fellow, John. I hope you soon find some sunshine and joy in your life. And he wrote back with another 4-letter profanity. So we're just going to throw John away and not deal with that anymore. But some people get worked up over some silly little things. How about Matt Johnson? Let's see if Matt is worked up or not. Hey, Ron, been a minute. Came across something that you might find interesting. It's a post on a hunting group that I found on Facebook, and it asked, what do you think is the best cartridge for deer inside of 450 yards? Well, I tallied the results thinking it would be interesting to see what actual hunters are using. And some were surprising, but most were not. So feel free to do with this information as you will. P.S. One of the votes for the number one cartridge is mine. Okay, Matt, we're going to see what you said. This really is interesting, folks, because we're always arguing about what is the best whitetail cartridge. Let's just see what this particular Facebook group came up with. Oh, my goodness, there's 22 of them. And the 22, this is a coincidence. Number 22 preferred cartridge for whitetail is the 22 Creedmoor. It got 2 votes. Then we go to the 6mm ARC. That's a surprise, even at number 21. Then, the good old 280 Remington got, oh my goodness, 22 votes. Oh, those were all tied. There were 22 for the 280 Remington, 22 of them in that category. Yep, those 3 were all tied at the bottom. All right, and number 19 was the 338 Winchester Magnum. That kind of surprises me. The 6.8 Western got 3 votes. 28 Nosler got 3. 300 Remington Ultra Magnum got 4 votes. I'll be darned, just for whitetail. That's a big, fast, powerful cartridge for that. The 270 WSM got 4 votes. And the, going the opposite direction now, guys. 223 Remington, 5 votes. Favorite whitetail cartridge. This doesn't surprise me because I hear from a lot of people who swear by that 223. One of them is Richard Mann, of all people. He is a gun writer and a darn good one. And he has been using the 223 Remington to good effect for a long, long time. 257 Weatherby Magnum. That came in about number 14 position. Then that was preceded by the 300 PRC in 14th place, too, tied with the 6 votes. And then we got the 7 PRC, 6.5 Creedmoor. Guys, that's way down there in number 9, so it's not the most popular one. There you go. 7mm 08 Remington beat it out. Yes! A lot of people are going to be happy about that. Hey, but we haven't heard from the 308 yet. Where's that one going to end up? The 6mm Creedmoor is preferred by 1 vote more over the 7mm 08. The 6mm Creedmoor. See, I would have thought the 6.5. Oh, wait a minute. Have we hit the 6.5 yet? Yeah, the 6.5 is behind them. I'll be darned. All right. Oh, here it is, guys. Guess what number 6 is? Drumroll. 308 Winchester. Number 6. That kind of surprised me, but 308 Winchester people are always ragging on me and saying it's the greatest. I would have thought that would have been number 1 or 2. So let's find out. Guess who beats out the 308 Winchester? The 300 Win Mag. As a whitetail round. That's crazy. And guess who beats out the 300 Win Mag? The 30-06. Where's John? John will be happy to hear that. 7 Rem Mag beat out the 30-06. I'll be darned. That one really surprises me. Oh, and the 6.5 PRC beat out both the Remington Mag and the 30-06 and all the rest of these already. That one truly surprises me. It was number 2. I wonder if the Facebook site that came from was the 6.5 PRC lovers. That would explain that one. This is something you always need to consider, folks, when you see these surveys is who did they survey? If you survey the 6.5 PRC lovers, you're probably going to get pretty high rankings in your choices on that one. Okay, here it is. 270 Winchester is number 1. Ta-da! 270 Winchester. Old guys rule.
Hey, Ron,
Yeah.
what's your favorite?
Oh, you would put me on the spot. For whitetails, my favorite. Guys, I have used so many over the years. Ooh, and recently we did an interview with a gentleman from Tennessee who has used over more than 102, I think he's up to now, 102 different cartridges and rifles to take whitetail deer. I guess they can take, I don't know how many. They've got so many deer back there that they don't have limited tags. So he takes a lot of does and stuff, but he has used over 100. Now, I haven't used nearly that many, but I've used quite a few. And if I had to pick a favorite, for a long time, I've said that the 7mm 08 is just about the perfect balanced cartridge for whitetails. It's a short action. It is not too heavy, not too light. It's not too fast. It's not too slow. 308 Winchester fits right in there with it, but I prefer the 7s because I don't think you really need the 30 caliber, but either one of those would work really well. But these days, being the old timer I am, who really puts a lot of the fun for me in hunting is becoming more nostalgic and traditional, which is why I still love fancy walnut and blued rifles. I understand the values of synthetics, and I used mostly those when I hunted in the wilderness 1 or 2 weeks at a time, out in a backpack, in a tent, in the rain and all. I didn't want to drag a gorgeous-looking rifle through that stuff, so I used stainless synthetics. I understand how well they work all, and I've had some wonderfully accurate ones. But when I'm doing more of a hunt for all the right reasons, where you just want to get out and enjoy a beautiful hunt, reasonably fair weather. You want to just play the game the way you want to play the game, not be in a hurry, not having a contest or anything like that. You just want to savor the whole experience. I love carrying a slim, trim, lightweight rifle in a traditional chambering, which the 270 Winchester would certainly be, as would many of these others. But the one that I have fallen on in the last few years is that 757 Mauser. Pretty much the same performance, shooting the same bullets as a 7mm 08, but it's just got a lot more of tradition and cachet about it, given some of its history and who's used it in the past. So I'm going to say that is now my favorite whitetail cartridge, and it's in my favorite rifle, the Park West Arms SD10 falling block single shot that Betsy helped trick up for me with some beautiful wood. And what else did we put on that rifle?
I can't remember, but it was a lot.
That was a lot. My initials are on it. The serial number is my name with number 1. It's cool stuff like that. It's got case hardened receiver on it. I mean, it's gorgeous. You people have probably already seen it, but I've taken 3 whitetail with it now, and I just love that thing. Got a hunt coming up in about 5 or 6 days with it again, so really looking forward to that. But this has been a fun little list of popular cartridges. I don't think many of us, if we were asked to think which cartridge would be real popular for whitetail hunting, would have picked the 300 Remington Ultra Magnum in 17th place, or a lot of these others. But the 270 Winchester in number 1, yeah, I would have thought it would have been the 308. But the 30-30 isn't even in here. And that one I hear from so many people. Anytime we do anything on the 30-30, I just get all kinds of support for that one. So I don't know what's going on there. Like I say, the group was probably the 6.5 PRC group.
On our community community post on YouTube, we should put out a survey.
Yeah, we need to do that. We need to ask all of you guys. How are we going to do that, hon?
I'll figure it out. Stay tuned.
All right, stay tuned, guys. I don't know if we're going to announce it on a podcast or if we're going to put it in on the website.
No, it'll be community posts for YouTube.
Community posts on what? Patreon?
No, Ron. What? On YouTube.
On YouTube. There's a community post on YouTube?
Yes.
What do I know? I just sit in front of the camera and talk. I don't know anything about it. That's why Betsy's here. She's the boss, if you guys haven't figured it out yet. Should I turn the camera on her?
No.
Okay, what else do we have going on here? Hunter, archer. Archer, is this a bow hunter? I have recently thought about getting my hunting license, but I am unsure what kind of rifle to use. Oh, a new guy. Cool. Welcome aboard, Hunter Archer. Just throw me some suggestions, he says. If you're going to leave a smart-ass comment, just know I'm not experienced in guns or ammunition. I know the basics, like aiming at the ground and not having your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Let the people with you know when you're ready to fire and all that stuff. I understand it's the person themselves and what they most are comfortable with, but I don't want a gun that's, well, too much work. For example, let's say there's a jam or maybe dirt in it and it won't eject a shell. I'd like to be able to take it apart and put it back together. Oh, man. I don't want to have a lot of loose parts that'll get lost or ruined. Oh, my goodness. I'd also like to be able to hold around 10 rounds in it and stop a black bear if there's an emergency. Do you want it to be able to fly? Okay, I've never hunted a day in my life, but I've shot a decent amount of guns. I like the look of lever action rifles, but I'd like something that's semi-auto in case I need to send another round quickly. I've never been much of a fan of bolt action, but it seemed like that's the main kind of rifle most people would. Oh my goodness, Hunter, you've got so many dichotomies here. You want a lot of rounds in it. You don't want it to be complicated with a lot of parts, but then you want it to be an auto loader. It gets a little more complicated generally. You should get a break action single shot. Pretty simple. You just push a lever, break it open at the hinge, drop a round in, close it, pull the hammer back, and fire it. Nothing to lose, nothing to break, easy to clean. You just open it up, cleaning rod goes right down the breech. Pretty simple. But you have a hard time with a magazine holding 6 or 10 rounds since it's a single shot. So that's probably not going to work for you. Listen, Hunter, I understand what you're looking for in a good hunting rifle, and I think what you need to do is consider the simplicity of the bolt action rifle and less capacity magazine. When you hunt, you're very rarely going to get 3 shots at an animal, let alone 6 to 10. Why do you want to carry 6 or 10 rounds in there? You're going to go bang and either hit him and then finish him off with a second shot, or maybe 2 shots to finish him off, or you're going to miss. You know what they always say, 1 shot, got 1, 2 shots, maybe, 3 shots, miss. Deer got away. That's been the standard for a long time because that's usually the way it works. So don't get all worked up about having a high capacity magazine. And if you do insist on one, the bolt actions will handle those. That's why you see those ugly magazines hanging off the bottom of so many bolt action rifles these days. Guys want to have more in the magazine. Well, there you go. You can get a 5-round magazine, a 10-round magazine, a 15-round magazine. You could even get a 30, I guess. So not going to only use but 2 or 3, but there you go. And they really are pretty simple bolt action rifles. They're simple to clean, simple to maintain, not a lot of parts to lose and all. I really do think, even though you don't like them, dive into them. They're going to be easier to maintain and clean, I think, than your lever actions or auto loaders. No. Now, a lot of autoloader guys are going to say, wait a minute, Spomer. The AR-15, the AR-10, those are really easy too. Yeah, but they do have a lot of little parts. I know you can take them apart fairly easily and maintain them. I've cleaned all the little parts in solvents and gasoline and different things like everybody, but I just think a bolt action is the one to work with. Okay, Ron, in your opinion, what caliber would be best for these Smith & Wesson lever actions that you were showing for deer hunting, for range practice, and just for fun? And do take into account recoil, weight, and overall enjoyment. This is from someone calling himself Best Defense Firearms. Yeah, best, I would say the 30-30. You know, you've got the 32 special, which is very few of them out there, and nobody makes them anymore. And it really doesn't do much more than the 30-30 already does. You've got the 35 Remington, and Henry is chambering for that. And that really doesn't do much more than the 30-30 either, even though the fans of it insist it does. But when you look at the numbers, out there past 100 yards, it doesn't really have more energy on target than the 30-30. Uses a 200 grain bullet instead of a 170, but big deal. I've never met a whitetail yet that would shrug off a 170 grain bullet from a 30-30. And a 30-30 doesn't recoil much. You're going to get more recoil out of the 35, so you're winning in that game. And then usually those lever actions 20-inch barrel. They're going to weigh about 7 pounds in 30-30. So it's pretty fun to carry it. And they're quick and light and handy and flat and easy to get around with. So overall enjoyment with the 30-30, I think that's the way to go. Now you could go to a 45-70, but now you're shooting some significant power. You got a 300 grain bullet, upwards to 405 grain, and they even had some 500 grain bullets in it. Got to get a lot more recoil out of that one, and you're not shooting as flat as a 30-30, I don't think, unless it's a 500 grain bullet or a 405, but GU is. 30-30 is the way to roll, period. All right, Jay Dunbar. Why spend time and money to avoid exercise and then spend time and money to exercise? I'm with you, Ron. I park on the far side of the parking lot to get a few extra steps in every day. Lots of laughs. He's referring to a recent video I did where I was constantly running down range. I think it was the Smith & Wesson 1854 lever action video. I would shoot and then say, where did that one land? I can't quite see it. And I would run 50 to 100 yards downrange to my targets and run back, and I realized people are going to think I'm an idiot. So I said, guys, the reason I do this, I know you all told me to use the spotting scope. And
I
yes,
did too.
Yeah, of course, Betsy did too. And it does make sense. But honestly, I do this for a little exercise. If I'm going to be out there shooting, why not get in some walking and or jogging? It's only 100 yards out and back. And you pile those up, and next thing you know, you got 3 miles in. And I didn't have to drive to town and buy a gym membership and waste gas getting there.
The other thing, you're the only shooter on the range.
Yeah, that's a great point, honey. A lot of guys will complain they cannot do what I do because they're on a public range where they follow all these directions. You can't get in front of the shooting line. And of course, that all makes sense on a public range for safety reasons. But when you're all by yourself on your private range, what the hey? We've got a beautiful, safe range out here, and if I'm the only one there, I can unload my rifle, lay it on the table, and run down range. Okay, and that's why I do that, guys, honestly, and Jay Dunbar agrees with me. It just doesn't make sense to spend money to go to the gym when you're avoiding work right there at home. All right. Did I read one from this guy about wilderness hunt yet? No, I didn't. We need to do this one. How much time do we have left? We're getting a little bit long. We might save this for next time. Let's see what the short one is. Now, this guy was listening to my interview with Jim Harmer, Backfire, and we were talking a lot about tags and hunting, and it's getting harder to get tags, and the mule deer population seems to be declining a lot, and what's going on, and all this stuff, and everybody has ideas. This gentleman, BP8023, says, for this hunting issue you discussed, it's because of the rise of the rich hunter. It's the same small group that's grabbing all the tags across the country. For example, both Jim and Ron can afford to and do apply for hunts across the country. The average hunter can't afford that. Well, yeah, you've got a point there, but you got to remember these tags are available to people who win the lottery, draw your name out, or you have preference points. So one year you apply and you get a point. The next year you apply and get another point. And when you get more points than everybody else, you get a tag, that kind of deal. But it doesn't matter if you have $1 million in the bank or $10 in the bank. Well, you probably need more than $10 if you're going to apply. There's a fee for applying. It is a little crazy these days, but it's not like the rich guys have any kind of an up on this other than they can apply in multiple states.
And they have the funds to do it.
Yeah, they have the funds, but still, the tag is the same price for everybody. If you get it, there might be a $10 to $20 entry fee to try to get that tag, which I think is kind of a joke. But where else do you see an advantage for the wealthy guys?
They can go on private property.
They can lease private property. That, I think, is a valid concern, and I've seen that one. I know that's true. And also, they can afford to hire outfitters. But I think that's always been the case. Way back when, if somebody wanted to go, say, on a doll sheep hunt in Alaska, if you're from New York or Memphis or Texas or here in Idaho, you probably don't know where to go in Alaska or how to get there. You've got to hire somebody, right? You hire somebody to drive a train to get you up there, or a boat. These days, a plane. Well, you're already spending money to get there. And then when you get there, how do you get out into the wilderness where these sheep are? Where are they? You've got to hire a guide. And in a lot of states these days, like Alaska, it's mandatory for you to hire a guide. So if you have a lot of money, you can give some guy $30,000, $40,000 for a sheep hunt, which Sounds absolutely insane. My first house didn't cost that much. But look what houses are for these days. I mean, the prices have gone through the roof on everything. And an interesting thing about hunting prices, like a sheep hunt, for instance, Jack Atchison and Son, old Jack Atchison said back in the 50s when he was sending people on sheep hunts, a sheep hunt cost about as much as a new Ford truck. And it's still the same today, according to his son Keith, who told me, yeah, most of these hunts are going for the price of a new Ford pickup truck. So, crazy stuff, guys, but that's kind of what the market will bear. And I agree with it. I wish I had enough money to go on a whole bunch of these hunts. Now, you're also right. I don't want to deny that. Jim and I have both had some opportunities that most folks don't get. And I'm eternally grateful for how blessed I have been with my career in that I got to go on a lot of hunts for a lot less money than most people would pay for those hunts. A lot of outfitters would take me just for the publicity. Some of them would take me for a much reduced price, etc., etc. So I'm not saying that I am like everybody else out there. I really did have an easy go of it, but I'm not complaining.
Well, Ron, the other thing is when you go hunting, you're also working, and that sounds crazy, but you have to get the right footage, the right film.
Yeah, I don't
You
want.
have to, yeah.
Yeah, right. I don't want to make it sound like I'm whining. Obviously, I'm not, but it is true. When I hunted with folks who just paid the freight and they were in camp with me and we hunted together, they were just relaxed and having fun enjoying the hunt, and I was move here, stay there, pose that, taking pictures, hold your rifle like this, and I had to consider all that stuff. And then after hours, when they were sitting back having a libation around the campfire, I was setting up the tripods and cameras to get pictures of this, and then I was taking notes and writing a story. But that was the price I paid for admission. Other guys worked hard at home, made a bunch of money, and bought the hunt and relaxed. So yeah, there's the trade-off. But I'm still not complaining. It was a heck of a life, and I'm not done yet. I just had a wonderful hunt in South Dakota a week ago, and I hope to have many more. And I hope that all of you do what it takes to enjoy the hunting. Whether you've got a job that pays you $1 million a year or one that just helps you get by, you know darn well that if you're a country guy, you can find a place to hunt for next to nothing. If you've got your own 10 acres, you can groom that property to really improve your chances for getting a buck on it. You know how whitetail are. If you're out in the West, you've got millions of acres of public land, lots of competition, but you can work harder, get in better shape, go farther, shoot better, understand your animals, call, stalk, all the things you can do to be the guy who gets the game. And so it just doesn't pay to complain and whine and stay home and not hunt. Even if I'm on hunts where I have very little chance of finding game and I don't get a shot for the whole hunt, I'm still out there doing what I love to do. I'm seeing things, hearing things, enjoying nature. I'm not in the office. You know what they say, bad day of hunting beats a good day in the office every time. So, good attitude really makes a difference. We are going to read about this big game hunt. Wow, from Lucas. He and his brother want to go on a real big adventure like we've been talking about, Alaska or Asia. And oh man, they've got some ideas here and he wants me to help him out. We will do that next time, Lucas. Save this one right here. Okay. Now, Betsy, do we have time for a little bit more? Yeah. Let's see what we've got here. You popped up. These are from the website?
Correct.
Hey guys, before we get into the questions that Betsy's pulled up for me, I wanted to once again talk about these beautiful Heidelbauer duck and goose calls. I bumped into Heidelbauer up in South Dakota when I was pheasant hunting. I was right close to his dad's and his old grandpa's hunting lodge where they did their duck and goose hunting. And I was up there with them years and years ago. And I realized I was really close. So we got together in a little restaurant, had a cup of coffee, and talked about old times. And they invited me up for dinner, and I went up to the lake shore in their cabin, and we just had a blast talking about the good old days and Frankie Heidelbauer and all he did for Ducks Unlimited. And now his son is doing the same, and his grandson. And they're making these calls, and they're absolutely beautiful, but they're also absolutely performers. These things are designed so that they do not get wet, swell, and change pitch. They're true every time. If you want to check out a really good quality duck call and get one for that special waterfowl hunter in your life, look up Heidelbauer calls, Heidelbauer waterfowl calls, I think they're called. Sioux Falls, South Dakota was where they're made. They're just absolute works of art, both the way they look, the way they work, and the way they sound. All right, from British Columbia, we're hearing from Chance, it looks like. Reducing decibels without a suppressor. Let's see what he has to say. Hi, Ron. Suppressors are outlawed up here in Canada. Yeah, from what I'm hearing lately, almost everything that goes bang is outlawed in Canada. At any rate, he continues, I am looking for other ways to cut down on decibels coming out of the muzzle of my guns as much as possible, while still having a good 100-yard gun for whitetail, mule deer, and the occasional black bear. Subsonic ammunition seems to be a good place to start. I understand there are a few other factors at play here: barrel length, projectile weight, atmospheric conditions, etc. Would you be able to speak to these and other contributing factors, as well as to point out some combo that you might choose for a setup with the absolute lowest decibels while still being able to take on some medium-large game? Here are a couple I have come up with. A Henry lever action 4570, 22-inch barrel, shooting on a Hornady Sub-X 410 grain bullet at 1,075 feet per second. Henry lever action 30-30 20-inch barrel, again, Hornady Sub-X 175 grain bullet at 1050 feet per second. Any other options would be greatly appreciated. Yeah, Chance, you're on it here. The best you can do is go with lower recoil. The bang from a firearm is like the bang from a big balloon. You know, you can have a little balloon go pop, you can have a big one go bigger pop, and you can have a great big one go kaboom. It's all the pressure. The higher the pressure, the bigger the boom. So if you have less powder and less pressure in your load, you're going to get less muzzle blast. And subsonic, the real advantage to subsonic, you see, is you don't get the sonic boom of the pressure wave in front of the bullet. So you get a double crack. If you've ever been downrange of a high velocity bullet, you'll hear a crack, and then you'll hear the boom from the rifle when the bullet leaves the muzzle. Those are two different sounds. So there's why they want subsonic. When they put a suppressor on that barrel, you've got no sonic crack of the bullet downrange, and you have much, much less boom because you've reduced the pressures coming out of the muzzle at the suppressor. So if you can't use a suppressor, the best you're going to do is knock off that sonic boom, which you're really not going to hear back where you're shooting, but your game is going to hear it. But by the time they hear it, it's too late. So the best you can do is just go with a lighter load like this. The fact that you're only driving that bullet 1,050 feet per second says you've got a lot less pressure and bang in that 30-30 or 45-70. So then you're going to be giving up, of course, some energy in that bullet. You're going to have more drop to it and less energy when it gets there. I think either one of them are going to work just fine inside of 100 yards. But because you've got a much heavier bullet in that 45-70, it will be more effective on the bigger animals that you think need a little more oomph, driving a little deeper with a heavier bullet. So you might want that for bears, especially really, really big bears. I have found that your average 150 to 300 pound black bear isn't much different in its constitution than a whitetail of a similar size. People think they're just big, massive, muscular things that take a lot of bullet to do the job, but I haven't found that to be the case. So I wouldn't freak out too much about that. So either one of those should work for you. Now, I'm not speaking from practical experience because I haven't used those to take game. I'm just going from what I know about ballistics and performance. So anybody out there who's used them, please weigh in on this one and let us know if we can't cover this again for Chance. But I'm guessing inside of 100 yards, either one should work. Now we're going to go to North Carolina. Boy, they have some big black bears in North Carolina, I hear. Whew, some of them have been weighed up at 800 pounds. That makes a grizzly look small up in Alaska. This is Diane. I'm interested in hunting for Nyala, lesser kudu, impala, and sable in Africa. The Nyala is at the top of the list. How do you find an impeccable, honest hunting guide? Whew. I'm an older lady that is physically fit and handy with a rifle. This past November, I took a beautiful bull elk in western Missouri, 900 pounds plus, 6x6 bull, absolutely stunning and delicious. Wow, that's great, Diane. You are rolling. You used a Weatherby 257 Magnum. Nice. 235 yards shot downhill, one shot, and lying down in a wallow, he jumped up, took 2 steps, and fell over dead. His lungs were vaporized. Good for you, Diane. Sounds like you know what you're doing and you're doing it right. So now she continues, I am looking for a recommendation for someone like yourself as a professional who can recommend a good outfitter. Price is not the concern. Professional service and honesty are. Your advice is appreciated. Okay, Diane. I've been with many over there, some really great ones. I'll try to come up with them. Now, one of them is Werner von Seidlitz of Immenhof Hunting in Namibia. Another one is Crusader Safaris in South Africa on the Eastern Cape. Another one is Zambezi Delta Safaris in Mozambique. They've got some great wild hunting over there. And then where else? Up in Namibia is Jamie Trout. He's got an excellent reputation as well. Betsy has hunted with all of these people. What do you say, Bets? They're all great?
Depends on where you want to go. I love Mozambique and Crusaders. I mean, they've all been great.
Yeah.
It just depends on what you're looking for. I think we need more information, but those are, depending on the country you want, those are great outfitters.
Yeah. We've been to those. There are a couple more. I'm kind of blanking on them right now, but that's a good start. Now, Diane, the other thing you can do, of course, is go to a convention where booths are there. They are sitting in their booth, and they can talk to you, show you on the map where they're going to be, show you a bunch of pictures, and you get to meet some of the guides, PHs, or whomever, and get a feel for them. Some people you just rub wrong, or they rub you wrong. Let's stay away from this one. And that's usually a real good way to get to know these people.
There are 2 conventions coming up, the Dallas Safari.
Dallas Safari Club Convention is in Atlanta, and the Safari Club International Convention is in Nashville. So you might want to look into those 2. Now, there are a good one out here in the West. You're from North Carolina, but if you want to come out to Salt Lake, they've got one here in, in late February, mid-February. It's the Western Sportsman's Show. That one's really going well. We love that one. Of course, we're not far away. We can just drive down there. But that one got a lot of outfitters from Africa who show up, so you can meet some of those folks. Anyone else out there who wants to recommend good PH for Diane, feel free to send that information in to us.
Oh, the other thing is Joseph von Benedict is having a...
Oh, that's right. Joseph von Benedict, a good writer, he's in the same business I am in, and he's got a podcast, and he's a straight shooter. And he is starting up a business recommending booking folks. So you can go with a booking agent like that. Do you remember what he's calling his agency or anything?
No, but we'll interview him shortly to talk
Pretty
about
soon we're
it.
going to have an interview with him and talk about that and a bunch of other things, see what he's been doing. In fact, he was just over in Africa, I think, on a buffalo hunt. So we'll ask him about that. Now, you can go with Jack Atchison and Sons, their booking agent. They've got some good connections. And then there's a place called Book Your Hunt. We worked with those folks and loved them. And they tend to give you lower rates than most other places because it's a simple online booking process rather than having to get the people in the office to do a bunch of work for you. It's kind of done over the computer. I don't know if it's AI, but they vet the outfitters and supposedly they're all top-notch, et cetera, but you don't necessarily get to speak to them directly right off the bat. Check them out and see exactly how they're working. It was several years ago that we worked with those folks. Any more like that? There's a bunch of them out there. We've used booking agents. That's a good way to go because they've got insight into your personality and the outfitters. Most of them will have hunted with the PH or the outfitter. They know their operations and how they work with different people and all. And then they can kind of assess what you're looking for and team you up with the right outfitter. And they generally don't charge you a thing for it. All of their money comes from a fee that the outfitter pays for their service in getting you. So do look up some of those booking agents. I think they'll do well for you. Write back, Diane. Same place you wrote last time? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now write us back, Diane, and Betsy will be watching for you, and we'll send you some more information if you need it. And anybody else who's interested in a hunt, we've got a couple of them going here next year. We're going to be going with Crusader Safari and Werner von Seidlitz at Immenhof, late June, early July. I've got quite a good list already, but I think we got a couple of slots left. So anyone who's interested, get a hold of me ASAP. We're going to be finalizing this stuff. One of you is already booked in. Put your deposit down, and we're locking things in. So we're going to have a good time over there hunting about a week in each spot. So you'll get to pick your spot and hunt, and I will be there to hunt with you some of the time. We'll be in camp together. We'll share notes, have a libation around the campfire, and enjoy Africa. So until I see you next time, or you hear me next time, hunt honest and shoot straight.